If Alejandro's background was architecture and urban design with a passion for business, mine has been one which has been overwhelmingly a business career, but with a great passion for design, as I was a graduate also of the Royal College of Art, so very passionate about design, and back there again now. Now, an essential part, as I said at the beginning, of thinking about eco-cities is about jobs. It's a passion that Alejandro and I both share in terms of thinking, how do you create a city where, let's give the actual numbers are, for the first phase of Dongtan, there'll be a population of 86,000, but there need to be, for it to be a true eco-city, at least 51,000 jobs. Now, a typical city of this size would have only about 19,000. So it's about how do you create 2.5 times as many jobs right from the start. More importantly, as the city develops, and over the decades there could be 1 million people. This is a city that's physically the size of Manhattan, and it's fairly dense, so when it develops up, it's going to have a hell of a lot more people. How do you keep those kind of ratios going? Now, these are crucial questions. Now, we, as part of the EPSRC funded work that I'm also involved in, and Andy Davis is leading at Imperial, we are looking at what kind of characteristics does the city need to have, what characteristics of governance need to be in place in order to balance and maintain this crucial link between an entrepreneurial city and an ecological city. Because many would consider that the industry may be part of the problem. We think it isn't. We think it's actually part of the solution. Now, we think there are 5 key attributes that I'm going to talk about tonight, which are part of it. The sequence by which you build that city to make sure it turns out more like a Palo Alto than a Basingstoke, and I'll explain how you can get off on the wrong trajectory. The second is around the social capital of the city. Cities need the ability to reinvent themselves, and I'll talk about an example of a city that's constantly reinvented itself. Because whatever industries you conceive of today, and whatever way that social capital develops, things are going to change. The third area is, and Richard Florida would say, just get the creative classes there. Attract them to the city. Well, we don't think that's enough, and I've done a lot of work with Barcelona. And with the city of Barcelona, they recognize, although it's a phenomenally international city, unless they can connect the skills of an international community, of the skilled knowledge workers, with the institutions and the business of that city, they will not propel that city on into the future. And if that international community, as well as the local community, is going to thrive, a city needs an innovation system. That's the fourth. And the fifth attribute is about making sure it has all of the infrastructure that's required, not just in terms of the infrastructure of road and rail and transportation and waste management, but also the information systems and other technologies that can truly make it a smart city, well equipped for a digital economy. We have so those are the 5, and I'll just take you through those, I hope, if I press this button. So, sequence. Now, Mark Dodgson's also in the audience tonight, Mark. Mark came up with the concept with David Gann of think, play, do as part of a process of innovation, of new models of innovation inside business. But what we think also exists is this concept of a think, play, do city. A think, play, do city, let me sum it up. A think, play, do city is one that is generating, the thinking part is generating new knowledge. A doing city is one that is not only applying the knowledge that's generated inside that city, but also able to assimilate knowledge from elsewhere and turn that into economic and social value. Because we are in a knowledge economy, a services-led knowledge economy. So the doing part is about taking that knowledge, that thinking part. But a city also needs to be a place of play. Richard Florida was right. You cannot attract the skilled knowledge workers, the creative classes that he refers to, unless you have a city that's exciting and desirable to be in. So we think that think, play, do is crucial. But what sequence do you build this? Do you start out with a city that's a thinking city? Do you move in the dreamy spires of Oxford and the knowledge creation? Do you move in the IT companies and the call centers? Where do you begin? How do you end up? And the picture up there, that is Basingstoke. I worked in Basingstoke for a while, and nothing against Basingstoke if anybody comes from it. But given a choice of where you'd prefer to be, probably that wouldn't be the top of everybody's list. I did have an Italian friend who said, I love Basingstoke. It's the most beautiful name of a city. He also thought that Huddersfield, a French colleague, was also a beautiful name. So you can get taken by names, but important part is what sequence do you build? Now, part of the concept of Dongtan is a really strong focus right at the very outset on ecotourism and some of the leisure aspects. Why? Because that enables the city to build an infrastructure and a quality of infrastructure in terms of shopping and all the leisure activities which become a magnet, an aspirational magnet for people to want to live in. Start with the call centers and the universities and the bars that the students will go to, and you may not create that same kind of aspirational characteristic. So the picture at the back is Saint-Tropez. Does Dongtan, East Beach, begin more as a Saint-Tropez that blossoms into a Sophia Antipolis of creativity, innovation, and industry? Or does it take a path of so many suburban cities on the outskirts of other big cities and sit in their shadow and provide a dormitory or a low-cost place to site your business? So if we move on from sequence, what is the right sequence? The next is about social capital. Most US cities have declined. Almost all the major cities in the US have declined but one. Edward Glaser wrote a fascinating paper, referred to New York as the Colossus, a city that keeps reinventing itself. But New York, going back about 150 years, was fighting it out with Philadelphia, with Baltimore, with Charleston. All of these cities had the same kind of attributes in that moment in time. But somehow, whilst those cities did not grow, here you had a city that has continued and truly probably is one of the few global cities that's truly a think, play, do city.